I have several
You have
comments.
to first unmute.
Okay.
You're unmuted. Please kindly unmute.
General Muti, please unmute. We don't know if it's your name or it's the name of your device. Yeah, there you go. Thank you.
There you go. All right. Yes, I have several comments. I want to, Dr. Kilo, first and foremost, if you was born in America, they would really kill you about your name. You know, just teasing you about your name, because it has a whole other connotation in America. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. My comments is mostly, I want to try to expand the dialogue and try to be more specific, because I think specificity is important. I've heard multiple comments and sort of people are like skirting around it. I want to go straight to the source. Much of what we're talking about, this so-called left-handedness, once you understand the science, we realize that most of this stuff is nonsense. Once you got the science, and science dictates who's going to be left-handed and who's going to be right-handed. And so all the other stuff is just nonsense. But to be more specific, much of in continental Africa, much of that comes from the Arabs, in Arab imperialism and Arab colonialism, or as I like to say, cancerism, and Europe, and then after them, the Europeans with their colonialism and their cancerism, and their superstitions, both of whom came were heavily religious people, or came with religiosity, and they brought their superstitions with them, and they imposed them on us after they dominated us and subjugated us. And as a result, that came to us with America, those of us who was kidnapped and taken off to America, and we deal with that. We're still dealing with that to this very day in 2026. Much of the European, we dealt more so after dealing with Arab subjugation. We had to deal with European subjugation. And for Europeans, if you study the so-called Dark Ages, in the Dark Ages, they were so superstitious that they thought that left-handedness was wickedness. So much so that many of the knights would, if a child was trying to use their left hand, they would punish the child, sometimes even at death, sentence them to death for using their left hand. And most of them in Europe, they were untrusting of one another, so that when they shook hands, the so-called custom of shaking hands came from Europeans, because they didn't trust each other. And most of them fought with their right hands, so if they shook hands, they know the person couldn't take their sword and chop their head off. But it was foolish again, because the assumption is that you can't use your left hand to have a dagger and kill somebody with the left hand. So clearly we see that there was, if for lack of a better word, one brain-sidedness, because they really wasn't thinking, but they was just thinking with one side of their brain, and it didn't allow them to be balanced in brain and mind. For me, growing up personally, my mother had 9 children. Her first child, her oldest child, was left-handed. And my mother, being the dynamic woman that she was, she learned very quick what not to do and what to do, irrespective of what this white supremacist society in which we live in was telling her. She made mistakes by forcing her first child to write with her right hand and punished the child, my sister Cynthia. But then after that, she said, oh, that didn't work. And so 3 children later, she had another left-handed child. She let them be left-handed. And then another child later, she had another left-handed child. She let them be left-handed. So she learned pretty quick what works and what doesn't work. So for some of us, we understand, and I probably caught some of that because I'm ambidextrous simply because I trained myself to be so. Because I've always taken the position that there was nothing wrong with left-handedness. For me, particularly as it translates into sports, a person that can dribble with both hands is better than somebody that can dribble with one hand. Or a person that can, one thing we haven't talked about is left-footedness too, because a lot of times that happens as well. A person, their dominant foot is the left foot or the right foot, and so I've trained myself to be both, and I do it constantly. And you know, the ultimate compliment somebody gave me one time on the basketball court was, you know, cut off his left hand. He's only left-handed. And they don't know how big they made my head swell up when they say that, because that's all I was working to do, is use my left hand proficiently, and at the same time not really knowing I gave myself a balanced mind. So I just think that when we have this discussion, we need to be specific about the devastating effect of Arab and European colonialism and imperialism, and how, because we wound up under their domination, our cultures had, through the process of acculturation, had alien culture superimposed in them, and many of them had these real vicious superstitions, and we picked those superstitions up. It's only those of us who engaged in Sankofa, that is, go back and fetch it, who knew how we was living before we came into contact with them, that we stopped doing these things, because these things are not healthy for us, especially when we know the science, and we've always been a people of science.
Wow. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ajamu-Osagboro.